Welcome to the third video in our preterite series. In this video, we are going to focus on car, gar, and zar verbs in the preterite. So there is an irregularity happening in these verbs, but there's a pattern that follows. So make sure, pay attention, pause the video if you need more time. Let's get started. In the preterite tense, some verbs have a spelling change. And don't worry, we're going to look at some examples. We're going to talk about how this works. This spelling change is going to happen in the 1PS or the first person singular conjugation of the verb. These include verbs with the infinitive. Remember, infinitive is unconjugated. These include verbs with the infinitive endings of car, gar, and zar. And you're going to hear them referred to as the preterite car, gar, and zar endings. So in the preterite, verbs that have these endings change as follows. The car is going to go to a Q-U-E, pronounced K. The gar is going to go to a G-U-E, pronounced gay. And the zar is going to go to a C-E, pronounced say. Very important to note that all of these end in the letter E with an accent mark on it. So let's define and conjugate some examples in the first person singular in the preterite. So make sure that you're paying close attention that this only happens in the first person singular. The rest of these verbs conjugate normal. So buscar, which is to look for, remember you look for a bus, you look for a car, buscar, is going to leave the stem, which is B-U-S, and then because it's a car verb, it's going to end in Q-U-E. So we have busquer, busquer. And the reason that this happens this way is because it's phonetic. So I'm going to write some things in blue. Don't copy this part down because this is wrong information. And I don't want you to have this wrong information, but I want you to see why that Q magically appears. So if we started with the stem and then we just added the regular first person singular AR ending in the preterite, we would be left with this. Busque. It just doesn't sound right. It's not pronounced busque. Naturally, you want to say yo busqué. And yo busqué means I looked for. So this blue part here that I'm erasing, that is wrong information. You want it to end in the Q-U-E. Okay, moving on to the next car verb. And at any point, feel free to pause the video. Try these on your own. See how you do. Marcar is to score. Okay, it can also be to mark. Some of these have multiple meanings. And then my stem is going to be that M-A-R-C. So we're going to get rid of the C and we're going to end in Q-U-E. So we have marqué, I scored, or I marked, yo marqué. So notice that that C in the stem, the C is magically changing to a Q. Then we have practicar, to practice. It's a cognate, a word that sounds the same and looks the same in more than one language and means the same thing. This is going to change into practi, and then we're not bringing that C over for the stem. We're going to do a Q instead, so it's practique, practique. And you want that K sound at the end. Sacar can be to take, can also be used in some idiomatic or phrasal expressions to get, but we'll just use to take. S-A, because we're not bringing that C over, instead it changes to a Q-U-E, sake. Tocar, to touch, it can also be to knock or to play an instrument, becomes T-O and then Q-U-E, toque. I touched, I knocked, I played. Secar, which is to dry, becomes S-E-Q-U-E. So we have all of these K verbs now that we're working with. We have busquer, marquer, pratiquer, saquer, toquer, and sequer. This list is not all of the car verbs, but this is definitely a good sampling of those. So then the next thing that we have is our gar verbs. So jugar, which means to play, and remember this is like to play a sport, is going to go to J-U and then G-U-E. So the ending for gar verbs is G-U-E, and that E has that accent mark. So we have jugar goes to jugué. Llegar, which is to arrive. And this is also an important time to know your infinitives. If you know your infinitives, these irregularities are so much easier. Llegar goes to llegué. Pagar, to pay, goes to pagué. Pegar, to hit, goes to pegué. So we're just memorizing this new ending, this G-U-E that we're seeing, and that E has that accent mark on it. And then the final set of verbs that we're going to look at in the car, gar, and zar is the zar verbs. Empezar is to start or to begin, and so we're going to have E-M-P-E, and then it's going to end in C-E. Empecé, empecé, and that E has an accent. Lanzar, to throw, is going to go to lancé. Calzar, which is to fit, referring to shoe size. We don't really have this verb in English, and we've talked about it in our vocabulary list, but it will go to calcé, calcé. Abrazar, to hug, goes to abracé. Almorzar, which I love this verb because it's to lunch, and we don't really have that verb in English, but we need it, goes to almorcé, almorcé. Comenzar, also to start. Remember, comenzar and empezar can be used interchangeably. Goes to comenzar. And then organizar, which is to organize, is going to go to organice. So the phenomenon for this one is all of these are ending in that CE or that say, and that E has an accent mark over it. All right, this concludes the portion of the notes going over car, gar, and zar. Feel free to rewind, watch it again if you need to, and practice these on your own.